let's set the stage. We're about to delve into a complex and critical relationship, one that shapes the geopolitical landscape of an entire region. Israel and Iran, two countries in the Middle East, geographically close yet worlds apart in ideology and ambition, are locked in one of the world's most intense rivalries, a rivalry that extends beyond mere disagreement, shaping alliances and fueling conflicts across the globe. Imagine them as two guests at a party, forced to attend the same event, who can't stand each other, avoiding eye contact, subtly undermining each other's efforts, and waiting for the other to make a misstep. Except this party is the entire region, and the stakes are far higher than hurt feelings or social awkwardness. Israel, small, tech-savvy, a democracy, a nation that has transformed itself into a technological powerhouse, and a close U.S. ally, enjoying a strategic partnership that has shaped its security and foreign policy for decades. Founded in 1948 as a homeland for the Jewish people, a refuge after the horrors of the Holocaust, Iran, much larger, ancient, a land with a rich history stretching back millennia. And since 1979, an Islamic republic led by a supreme leader, a theocratic regime that has fundamentally altered the country's direction. Positioning itself as a regional powerhouse and leader of the Shia Muslim world, seeking to expand its influence across the Middle East and beyond. They don't share a border or a long history of direct wars. Their conflict is more nuanced and insidious, but their animosity shapes the Middle East. It fuels proxy wars, destabilizes governments, and exacerbates existing tensions. This isn't a classic battlefield conflict. You won't see tanks rolling across borders or soldiers clashing in open combat. It's a Cold War of spies, cyber attacks, and proxy militias, a shadow war fought in the digital realm and on the battlefields of other nations. Their rivalry is a powder keg, threatening to ignite a wider conflict that could engulf the entire region, and understanding it is key to understanding the region, to navigating the complex web of alliances and enmities that define the Middle East. So, how did two non-neighboring countries become such bitter enemies? What are the roots of this deep-seated animosity? The answer: revolution, nuclear ambitions, the pursuit of weapons that could dramatically alter the balance of power, and a fundamental clash over how the region and the world should work. Competing visions of governance, security, and the very future of the Middle East. It's a tangled mess of history, politics, and religion, a complex tapestry woven with threads of ancient grievances and modern-day power struggles. Tonight we'll try to untangle it. We'll delve into the key events, the underlying ideologies, and the personalities that have shaped this rivalry. Because when two powerful countries are at each other's throats, it pays to know why. The stakes are simply too high to ignore. Buckle up, we're about to embark on a journey into one of the world's most dangerous and consequential rivalries. Hard to believe, but Israel and Iran were once close partners. Before 1979, Iran was ruled by the Shah, a secular, pro-Western king and U.S. ally. Israel, also pro-Western and surrounded by hostile Arab states, saw Iran as a strategic friend. They traded oil for technology, shared intelligence, and even collaborated on secret military projects. Israeli experts worked in Tehran, and there were direct flights between the two capitals. Iran quietly recognized Israel, making it unique among Muslim-majority countries. This alliance made sense. Two non-Arab, US-aligned powers wary of Soviet influence and Arab nationalism. But this friendship rested on the Shah's rule, which many Iranians saw as corrupt and too close to the West, and to Israel. The relationship was never popular with Iran's religious conservatives. Beneath the surface, resentment simmered. The partnership looked stable, but it was built on shaky ground. And then, everything changed. 1979. Everything flipped. The Iranian Revolution ousted the Shah and brought Ayatollah Khomeini's Islamic Republic to power. The new regime was anti-Western, anti-Israel, and saw itself as the vanguard of Islamic revolution. Overnight, Israel went from partner to little Satan. Iran severed ties, handed Israel's embassy to the PLO, and made opposition to Israel a core principle. For Khomeini, Israel wasn't just a rival, it was an illegitimate foreign presence in Muslim lands. Supporting the Palestinian cause became central to Iran's identity and foreign policy. Israel now faced a powerful, ideologically driven enemy committed to its destruction. The old logic of the enemy of my enemy was gone. The era of quiet cooperation ended, open hostility began. The modern conflict was born in the fires of 1979. So with decades of animosity and mistrust shaping their relationship, Why are Israel and Iran still locked in such a deep and seemingly intractable conflict today? What are the core drivers that fuel this ongoing tension? There are three main reasons that consistently emerge when examining this complex dynamic: politics, religion, and security concerns. These three factors intertwine and reinforce each other, creating a potent mix of antagonism. Politically, Iran's leaders frequently employ anti-Israel rhetoric in their public statements and policies. This serves to boost their revolutionary image, both domestically and internationally, and allows them to project influence throughout the region. By consistently championing the Palestinian cause, positioning themselves as a key ally, they aim to rally support and consolidate their position across the broader Muslim world. This resonates with many who feel strongly about the Palestinian situation. Religiously, Iran's Shia theocracy views Jerusalem as a holy land that is currently under occupation, a perspective deeply rooted in their religious beliefs. This transforms the conflict into what they perceive as a sacred duty, a religious obligation to challenge the status quo. For them, Israel isn't simply a political or strategic rival in the region, it's seen as a fundamental affront to their religious values, a blasphemy against their faith. This deeply ingrained religious dimension makes finding common ground and achieving compromise exceptionally difficult, if not nearly impossible. However, security is arguably the biggest and most pressing issue driving the conflict. Israel views Iran as its primary existential threat, a nation actively working to undermine its security and stability. This perception is fueled, in large part, by Iran's unwavering support for various proxy militias and armed groups throughout the region. Prominent examples include Hezbollah, operating primarily in Lebanon, and Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip. Iran provides substantial arms, funding, and training to these groups, effectively creating a ring of fire of hostile forces surrounding Israel's borders. Iran, on the other hand, perceives itself as being surrounded by U.S. military bases and allies in the region, and views Israel as a heavily armed aggressor, potentially possessing nuclear weapons. Therefore, its missile program and support for proxy groups are, in their perspective, purely defensive measures designed to deter potential attacks and protect its national interests. Consequently, both sides firmly believe that they are acting solely in self-defense, responding to perceived threats and provocations from the other. This mutual perception of victimhood and the need for self-preservation creates a dangerous dynamic, a recipe for endless escalation and potential miscalculation. And ultimately, it's this complex interplay of political, religious, and security factors that explains why the conflict between Israel and Iran continues to deepen and become increasingly dangerous with each passing year. What is the most critical flashpoint in this complex region? It's undoubtedly Iran's rapidly advancing nuclear program. The progress they've made in recent years has alarmed many nations. For Israel, a nuclear-armed Iran represents an existential nightmare, a threat to their very survival and security. The phrase, "never again," born from the ashes of the Holocaust, resonates deeply within Israeli society. It's a vow to prevent any future atrocities. Consequently, Israel has repeatedly vowed to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, regardless of the cost or the actions required. Iran, on the other hand, consistently insists that its nuclear program is solely for peaceful purposes, such as energy production and medical research. However, the veil of secrecy surrounding certain aspects of the program, coupled with its ongoing ballistic missile development, continues to fuel deep suspicion and international concern. The fundamental question remains, why does an oil-rich country like Iran have such a pressing need for nuclear power? That very question is what constantly haunts Israeli military and strategic planners as they assess the potential threats. Back in 2015, the international community reached the nuclear deal, formerly known as the JCPOA, which placed limitations on Iran's nuclear program. This agreement was designed to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions in exchange for the lifting of crippling economic sanctions. However, Israel vehemently opposed the deal from the very beginning. They argued that the JCPOA was fundamentally flawed, being too weak, too short-lived, and ultimately insufficient to prevent Iran from eventually developing nuclear weapons. Then, in 2018, the United States unilaterally withdrew from the nuclear deal under the Trump administration. Following the U.S. withdrawal, Iran significantly ramped up its uranium enrichment activities, exceeding the limits set by the JCPOA. Now, Iran is widely considered a nuclear threshold state, meaning it possesses the technical capability and materials required to rapidly construct a nuclear weapon if it makes the political decision to do so. This situation presents Israel with an agonizing dilemma. Does it launch a military strike against Iran's nuclear facilities, risking a wider regional war with potentially devastating consequences? Or does it rely on diplomatic efforts and international pressure, hoping for a peaceful resolution, while potentially allowing Iran to inch closer to acquiring a nuclear weapon? The Iranian nuclear issue remains the most volatile and potentially explosive trigger in this already unstable region. A single miscalculation, a misinterpreted signal, or an act of aggression could quickly ignite a full-blown conflict, engulfing the entire region in chaos. The stakes in this high-stakes game of nuclear brinkmanship simply couldn't be any higher. This isn't a conventional war, it's a shadow war. Israel and Iran battle through espionage, sabotage, cyber attacks, and assassinations. Mossad is believed to have assassinated Iranian nuclear scientists and sabotaged facilities with cyber weapons like Stuxnet. Iran, using proxies like Hezbollah, has targeted Israeli sites and Jewish sites worldwide. Both sides have escalated cyber attacks, hitting infrastructure and government systems. The conflict has spilled into the seas, with mysterious attacks on ships in the Persian Gulf and Red Sea. Each side denies responsibility, but everyone knows who's behind it. This tit-for-tat keeps the region on edge. The danger? One covert attack could spiral into open war. In this shadow war, truth is the first casualty. The risk of miscalculation is always present, and the world watches, hoping it doesn't explode. The Israel-Iran conflict is a series of flashpoints, not a steady burn. In 1982, Iran's IRGC helped create Hezbollah during Israel's invasion of Lebanon, now Israel's most dangerous non-state enemy. The 2000s saw the nuclear issue explode, with secret Iranian facilities discovered and Iranian scientists assassinated. Stuxnet set a new bar for cyber warfare. The Syrian civil war let Iran build a military presence on Israel's border, prompting hundreds of Israeli airstrikes. For the first time, Israeli and Iranian forces clashed directly, if quietly. The 2018 US withdrawal from the nuclear deal removed restraints, and Iran ramped up enrichment. The shadow war intensified, with attacks on ships and the US killing of Iran's Qasem Soleimani. Iran's missile retaliation brought the region to the brink. Each event deepened mistrust and made peace harder. The cycle of escalation continues, the stakes keep rising. Why should you care? Because this conflict affects the whole world. The Strait of Hormuz near Iran is a choke point for global oil tensions mean higher prices everywhere. The rivalry fuels instability across the Middle East, turning countries like Syria, Iraq, and Yemen into battlegrounds. It creates refugee crises and empowers extremist groups. For Israelis it means living under threat of attack. For Iranians it means sanctions and economic hardship. The conflict strains US relations with Russia and China and threatens the global nuclear order. If Iran gets a bomb, others may follow, triggering a Middle East arms race. That's a nightmare scenario for everyone. The world has a stake in what happens next. Stability in the Middle East is everyone's business. So what's next? There's no easy answer. The worst-case scenario, a full-scale war, triggered by a preemptive strike or a proxy attack gone too far. Both sides know this would be catastrophic, so they've avoided it, so far. The most likely future? More of the same shadow war, cyber attacks, and tense standoffs. It's a fragile, unstable balance. No war, no peace. Real peace would require a fundamental shift in Iran's ideology or a major regional change. A new nuclear deal could help, but mistrust runs deep. Leaders would need to take huge risks for a peace neither side expects. The core issues, Iran's nuclear ambitions, proxies, and opposition to Israel, remain unresolved. As long as they do, the conflict simmers, always threatening to boil over. There are no simple solutions. The Israel-Iran rivalry will keep shaping the world for years to come. And on that note, good night.